Good morning. I'd like to see a show of hands. Has anyone in this room ever climbed before, even if it's in an indoor gym? Lots of people. Okay, then you'll remember the first time you go climbing, you feel nervous, you don't know what to trust. Then you get to the top of the wall and they tell you to lean back and trust this little rope that's about that thick. Yeah, you don't usually forget that first experience. Well, now imagine going ice climbing. And so you not only have to trust the equipment and your partner, but you have to trust that the ice itself isn't going to break apart and fall down. And then you have to trust that your ice axes are going to stay in the ice and that your crampons, your feet, are going to stay into the waterfall. Now imagine doing all that, but your climbing partner can't see. Now that's an exercise in blind trust. So Eric Weinmeier is not an ordinary blind man. He's the first blind man to summit Mount Everest. And in 2004, he and his guide friend, Michael O'Donnell, decided to come to the Rockies so Eric could do his dream climbs, because climbing Everest isn't enough when you're blind. Then you then have to go on to kayak and ice climb. So they'd come up twice before to do these dream climbs, and they hadn't been successful. And they decided that the secret to success was bringing along a third person, so that Eric always had someone climbing beside him. They chose me as that third person, and I'm assuming it's because I'd been climbing with a legless guy for a couple of years by then. And maybe they thought the leap from no legs to no eyes wasn't a huge one, I'm not sure. But anyway, I got to go, and it was great fun. So they pick me up in Canmore, they fly into Calgary, pick me up in Canmore, we go up the Icefields Parkway to the Numtijah Lodge on Bow Lake, and that's going to be our base camp for the next 3 days. So that night at dinner, Eric excuses himself to go to the bathroom, and Michael leans over the table and gets all serious and says, "Margo, be really careful when you're climbing beside Eric. He could hit your rope with his axe. Remember, he's blind." I said, "Michael, what are the chances of that?" In 25 years of ice climbing, I'd never seen it before. Well, it turned out chances were pretty good. Michael did know a thing or two. So the following morning, we drove to Curtain Call, climb number 1, and it's considered a test piece of ice climbing in the Canadian Rockies. We were halfway up this waterfall. I'm simul-climbing with Eric on a top rope. We're halfway up the waterfall when I feel a little tug on my harness, and a moment later, Eric says, "Margo, I think I just hit your rope with my axe." And my first thought was, well, how would you know? You're blind. But I looked up, and 5 feet above me, there it was. Yeah, dead ringer. Sheath was busted apart, and the core was popped out the side. It actually looked just like a piece of popcorn attached to my rope. As you can imagine, I had an adrenaline dump like I'd never had before. And you can feel the blood like just pumping through your body, and your head's kind of pounding inside your helmet. And the realization that my life was literally hanging by a thread. So I have this adrenaline rush, but I also see my life flash before my eyes, and it was not a pretty trip down memory lane.